Well, good afternoon. First, thank you for your patience as we kind of sort through the facts of what we now know to be a murder-suicide situation that occurred probably in the early hours of this morning. It started when we received a call from somebody who was traveling southbound on 417, who saw a motorist stop their vehicle on the crest of the bridge, and what appeared to be a woman slide herself out of the passenger window of the car and jump into the St. Johns River, what appeared to be an attempt at a suicide. Deputies were immediately notified by, again, an eyewitness that was traveling on 417 southbound behind that vehicle, contacted the sheriff's office, and deputies arrived on the scene moments later. When deputies were evaluating the area, looking at the vehicle, they saw a woman that was floating. They saw two fishermen that were in the area, and they summoned their assistance. One happened to be an off-duty Seminole County firefighter, and they arrived at the area and helped recover the body of the woman who we now know to be Katorea Hutto, 31 years old, date of birth 10/29/91, with no known prior history whatsoever. As deputies continue to follow up investigation, they found that her home address was here on this street. She had lived here with her two children, Ahmed Jackson and Ava Jackson, who are 5-year-old twins. They were in a home that was built with a Habitat for Humanity partnership. Again, no prior histories here at the house, no prior histories with the mom at other locations. When deputies arrived here to conduct a well-being check, they went into the house and found the two children in bed, who appeared at first to be sleeping, later to identify that they are deceased inside the house right now. Mom jumps off the bridge, commits what's obviously now a suicide, and what looks to be a homicide that is contained within this house. When deputies cleared the house, they did a well-being check on the children, and then of course exited out in an effort to write a search warrant for the house to do a more in-depth investigation into what they saw. They saw no signs of trauma inside the house, no pools of blood, no obvious trauma to the children that were inside the house. They did witness a firearm on the floor with some live rounds that were on the ground. Again, no empty round cartridges, but a firearm that was on the floor in the bedroom. Describe the inside of the house. There was not much food inside the house. There was not much furniture inside the house, which looked like the family may have been struggling financially, but there is no indication that that is any of the concerns whatsoever. The last communication that Katorea had was a communication which was a phone call that went unanswered to her mom, Carol. Her mom, Carol, was in the area over the past couple of days, potentially having a medical procedure down in Orlando. She lives in North Florida, I believe Perry, and that phone call went unanswered. Carol, the mom, just simply thought that one of the 5-year-old kids grabbed the phone, called, so she never thought to call back or communicate. So there's a lot of unknown answers right now. We have Florida Department of Children and Families out here with us. They have no prior history or prior calls at the location. And again, we're waiting on the search warrant to come in so we can contact all the parties that are involved, look at the evidence that's at the scene, collect whatever we need to do. We knew that Katorea was working as a temp employee. She was at work as recent as a few days ago. Her employer, which again was a temp service where she was performing some clerical work in that capacity, had no suspicion. There's nobody that we know that had any indication that she may be in this dire state of needing service where she was suicidal or potentially homicidal. The mom did relate to us that she has struggled throughout her lifetime with depression, but there's been nothing to indicate that she may act out with this level of violence towards her children or commit suicide herself. So again, that's kind of what we know. I try to provide as much information. I'll open for any questions that you have. It's very unlikely that I'll have any of the answers because I've provided as much detail as we know at this particular time. And as more information becomes available, we'd be happy to share that with you.
How do you tell her name? Tell us what your best estimate of how they died?
Yeah, it's hard to tell right now. We know that the children did not, well, we don't know, but it does not appear that there's any blunt trauma. It does not appear that they were the victims of gunfire. So there would have to be a method of death that the medical examiner will have to help us understand through toxicology reports. But again, no signs of trauma to the body, and the deputies that went on the inside said it looked like two innocent 5-year-old children sleeping. They were in bunk beds. One child was on his stomach, a boy was on his stomach, the daughter was laying on her side, and again, if they did not check the vital signs, they would not know that they had been deceased, so it's unknown.
So you knew to come here because of, you figured out who she was, is that right?
Yeah, so she jumps out of the car. Of course, we're out there at the car. We're still waiting on some evidence on 417. As we know, these toll passes have technology that we can monitor with cameras and stuff like that. So as we're putting the pieces together, one of the things that is naturally an investigative follow-up is to find out wherever she lives, to see if there's any family members or there anybody can help us understand what was going on. We were hopeful that we would meet somebody here that we could talk to help us understand, but unfortunately we met the tragic fatality of two children that were in the house.
Sheriff, we saw two civilians, they both appear to be women walking out of the house at about 11:15, so are they friends or family that identified the children?
I don't know who they were. They may have been, I believe they were DCF. I'm being told from behind you, they were DCF workers. So again, they were there looking just to make sure there's nothing there. But again, no signs, no prior history, and no family members have been on scene here since the start of this incident at 8:45 this morning.
Spell her name for us, please.
You mentioned the phone call, her last phone call. What day was that?
The phone call that Carol, the grandmother or mother, received was at 10 p.m., approximately 10 p.m. last night. Again, she was here. She was on her way traveling back home to Perry. She got a call that she did not notice. Sometimes you get a call and you don't notice it until the next day where you see you've got a missed call. She just automatically assumed that one of the kids just grabbed the phone, was playing with it because there was no message left on the call. The spelling of the name, the first name is Catorreia Hutto, date of birth 10/29/91. Ahmed, Ahmad Jackson, children's last name are Jackson, and Ava, A-V-A Jackson. Now we've obviously contacted the mother. We're still actively trying to contact the father. We have not been able to contact him. The phone number that we had for him, I think he lives in South Florida somewhere. Again, we're trying to be sensitive to that, but next to Ken, her mom has been contacted, and we wanted to make sure that you were provided with the most detailed information that we had at this time.
Is she from the area? Is she from the area?
She has lived here for several years. Again, the Habitat for Humanity home was built. She's lived in this home for at least a year, and I believe that it's at least a few more years she was living in Seminole County. So she had been an established member here. She had lived here for several years. I believe she came somewhere down the path from North Florida, but I'm not exactly sure of the timeline on that now.
Sure,
Greg?
They said that people we talked to say that she goes by Tori, since it's easier to pronounce Tori. Is that your understanding?
I have not heard that. I don't know that.
Sheriff, based on the traffic cameras, do you
I'll
think,
come back to you, Greg, in a moment.
based on the traffic and the toll cameras, do you think that she drove right to the bridge from here, or did she drive around, or is that something you're looking at?
Yeah, so the question was whether or not she drove right to the bridge, jumped off the bridge. We don't know at this time, but I know investigators, when they arrived at the scene, they saw some condensation in the windows, which kind of makes us go back to say, what was going on? Was she sitting in the car for a while, building up courage to jump off the bridge, and the condensation occurred as a result of that? Was the car through the toll booth for several hours and she was off on the side of the road? If you know the 417 bridge, that shoulder is very tight. And any motorist that's going to sit at that particular location for any amount of time is going to draw some attention, right? Somebody's going to stop, somebody's going to call our office. So we think that she probably pulled up to that location right at the last moment. Whether or not she came to that toll booth and went directly right there is something that we would be interested to find out.
And I'm sorry, can you give us the date of birth again, please?
Date of birth on Catarea, 10/29/91. The children, again, twins, June 6th, 2018.
Obviously, this is a case of somebody going to extremes here. Is there anything you could just say generally about people who are having some kind of mental health crisis,
Yeah.
who are feeling like they're at the end of their rope? What,
Yeah, thank you for teeing that up, because quite literally when we were getting this call, we were having a meeting in our conference room about our comprehensive strategy to provide citizens with the mental health services that are so incredibly important right now. We face a crisis like we've never experienced before. We know that 25% of our children have seriously contemplated suicide in the last couple of years. We know that some unintended consequences brought on from COVID. Again, not a political statement, but if you were in recovery programs in that 2-year period where people were sheltering in place and not being around, it had a negative cognitive effect on society. So we're doing all that we can. We want to make sure that people know that there's help out there, there's resources out there, there's people who are willing to fund, to love, support, and trust, to lift families up so they don't have to experience this. And I think that it's something that our society has to come together and do it. It's not a Republican or a Democrat or an independent issue. It's something that every single citizen can rally behind, and it's examples like this that should drive all of us forward to get people the help and the services that they need. I'm proud of the relationship that we have with Advent Health, with our county, with our cities, and the services that are available. But a key part of that is to make sure that people and families know that they can walk through the door, that they can receive help, that there's no questions asked. We've done a lot of work in that space, and again, here's another example of such a tragedy. I mean, it pains any person, any family member, any parent to hear of this story, right? Everyone's going to watch this at home and say, how horrible is this? So I think it should push us all further to work harder and do as much as we can in this space to make sure that no other family has to go through this.
Sheriff, you've done this a long time. You've seen many crime scenes. The way the children were positioned, possibly asleep in the bed when they first walked in, does that tell you something about how she wanted them to be at peace when she did whatever she did?
Yeah, so a great question. I mean, we've seen some violent, aggressive acts in the past that are probably initiated by hate and pain and all of that. That's not what we saw here at this scene. Now the children suffered from some disability. I haven't looked at their medical records and all that. I know that they went to a special school that provided unique services for that. So it seems like they had love and support from family members that wanted to wrap themselves around them. I can also say that because typically when you have families that act out aggressively and all that, there's some type of history there. There is no history here. There is no history of allegations of neglect or abuse or anything like that. But again, anything further would be pure speculation on my part. I'll ask your question. I think that's all that I can really say on this.
Do we know when the kids were last seen, when they last were in school or someone saw them?
They haven't missed school, as we know. Do we know if the kids were in school yesterday or when the last time the kids have been seen? October 13th was the last day that they were in school. So again, we're putting those pieces together. I've shared with you kind of what we know. And again, some of that stuff, we just simply don't know the cause of death. There's a lot of unanswered questions that we're getting the search warrant now signed. Once we get into the house, maybe we can kind of fill in the gaps in some of these things. And we'll make sure that you get that information as soon as we have it available.
Is it accurate to say that the kids had special needs, and also the school that they went to, how are they, if you know the answer, how are they dealing with this? Are there counselors available for the kids?
Yeah, the kids did have special needs. They were assigned to a special needs school with people who specialize in that. I have not heard the report from what the school has. Again, this is unfolding pretty quickly. I'm sure that our chief of school safety, Rick Francis, tells me that they have been contacted and they are completely shocked and surprised with the findings of the reports.
Sheriff, this is a tragedy for the community and also for your deputies, people who are having to deal with this scene. Can you just offer general remarks on that?
Yeah, so again, this is an incredibly difficult situation. We see family members and neighbors that are coming out. I mean, people are devastated to hear stories like this. Our deputies that arrive on scene will go through our peer support team process because it's not natural to walk in and see and be exposed to these things, right? There's a lot of regret and remorse and should I've known, is there something else we could have done? But you know what we do is we pull together as a community, as a county, as a society, but let's make sure that people know that mental health is a real thing, real condition, that there's resources that are available out there, regardless of where you're at in your space. You know, check on your family, check on your loved ones, but here again, there was no signs at all where anybody that we've spoken to, anybody that would have known that, hey, let me give you a helping hand. So again, thank you, and we'll keep you informed with additional information that becomes available.